Before you study the individual structures of the nervous system, it's important to have a foundation in the basic organization of the nervous system itself. So the nervous system is divided into two broad divisions. The first is the central nervous system, and the second is the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system consists of two organs, the brain and the spinal cord. Your peripheral nervous system consists of your organs known as nerves. Your brain and your spinal cord act as your control center, while your peripheral nervous system, or your nerves, act as your sensory input to that control center and your motor or action output of your nervous system. I think when most of us think of the nervous system, the first thing we think about is the brain. Your brain is essentially your control center, also known as your central nervous system. The pathway where information comes into your brain is known as your sensory or afferent pathway. The pathway where information leaves your brain is known as the motor or efferent pathway. So imagine that I put my hand on the hot stove, and once I realized that it was on the stove, I pulled my hand away. So I have receptors and sensory neurons that would bring that information in and take that information to my brain, the control center. In my control center, the decision would be made that I need to coordinate my skeletal muscle in order to move my arm to get my hand off of the stove. So the pathway out, or the motor or efferent neurons, or the path that's heading out of the brain. This pathway of information in and information out is called the peripheral nervous system. While the things that are all happening in the control center are the central nervous system. If I were going to visually take that one step further, it would look like this. I have sensory or afferent neurons conducting information from the peripheral nervous system to my central nervous system. Once in the central nervous system, I have interneurons that are moving information as the brain is processing what it's received. Leaving the central nervous system would be my motor or efferent neurons, and they would continue down. So in this example, my afferent neurons might have dendrites in, say, my hand, and my efferent neurons would synapse on my skeletal muscle of my arm as I moved my hand away from the stove. And so what we actually see is that our sensory neurons, while they are dendrites or in the peripheral nervous system, actually synapse in the central nervous system. Our interneurons have dendrites and synapses in the central nervous system. And our motor or our efferent neurons have dendrites in the central nervous system, but spend the majority of their geography in the peripheral nervous system. So you could say that in order to qualify as an interneuron, you need to spend all of your geography in the central nervous system. Anything that does anything else is classified as a peripheral nervous system neuron.